Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Harris. You can find me on Twitter at DanHarris80. It is Friday, so it is time for us to do a game-by-game preview of this weekend's action. But first, as we always do, we are going to start by talking to Dr. David Chao. You can find him over at ProFootballDoc on Twitter and ProFootballDoc.com. Doc, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, so we've got the elephant in the room here with the NFL, and it's the Titans and the Steelers. Their game is postponed because of what I'll call a minor outbreak among the Titans, and a few more players seemingly tested positive each day. So this week is already postponed. Do you think that next week's game could be in jeopardy, or what are we supposed to expect?
Well, it depends on the circumstances, but there's no question that this is, something to pay a close attention to. But it's actually not surprising. All the way back in March when the pandemic first hit, I always felt that the NFL would start on time. But the question would be, in my mind, would they be able to finish, and what's going to happen after that? You knew there were going to be hiccups, and this is one of them. Despite what the NFL has tried to do, and they so far had done very well without a bubble, and before anyone criticizes them for not having a bubble, you can't have a bubble and ask players to leave their families or players to bring their families into a bubble situation for 6 months. A month of training camp, 4+ months of the season, and a month of playoffs. Nobody's doing that. The NBA and NHL were able to do it because it was like 6 weeks. And they've done what they can. But as far as this particular outbreak is concerned, the hope is that it's all related to initial contact. It's not like Titans are still mingling and you're starting over. The incubation period is easily 5 to 7 days. So if their last contact was Sunday or Monday, and I don't know which it was, you have to count 5 or 7 days at least. And quite honestly, you need to have this daily, here's someone else positive, stop. Now, if there's new exposure, that clock starts over again. So assuming that they all separated and quarantined, which is what the NFL wanted them to do, and they did that, it should not leak into next week. And obviously what's interesting so far is all the players that have tested positive that have known to be, or at least that are on the COVID list, are not in one position group. So far it's a D tackle, a linebacker, a long snapper, there was a cornerback, and there's a practice squad tight end. Don't know about the 2 new ones that just popped up yet. So I think next week, assuming there's no new news and assuming the incubation period ends, will be okay for the Titans. The interesting thing and the best news is, to date, knock on wood, no Vikings players who they played the Titans have tested positive. And that fits the viral load concept I've been talking about. The on-field opponent transmission is not as great as within a team, because you're in meetings and you're in each other, or buses or hotels, or quite honestly standing on the sidelines or in a huddle. That's greater standing next to each other, prolonged contact, than from an opponent.
Yeah. Well, that's good news, of course, about the Vikings, and they look like they are on track to play this weekend. So hopefully everything gets under control in Tennessee and they can play in Week 5. But for this week, let's also talk about Michael Thomas. We are recording this early in the day on Friday, so we do not yet have the final designation for Michael Thomas. It looked like he was trending in the right direction. He's returned to practice with this high ankle sprain, but they don't seem to be overly confident that he's going to necessarily suit up this weekend. So do you have any insight on Thomas and his high ankle sprain?
Well, I think this is a situation where I'm starting to look, when I'm wrong, one of the things I'm going to do, Dan, is say, look, I was wrong. It's just video and it is what it is. I've been saying to you for a while that Week 2 was doubtful, Week 3 was questionable, and Week 4 was probable. So I've been saying that Michael Thomas is going to be ready to go. But you have to read between the lines in terms of what the news is. And I look at the injuries, and I do think he's ready to go. But if you look at Ian Rappaport's latest report, he says Michael Thomas's return being determined by risk of re-injury, not how he looks in practice. So far, he looks okay in practice. If that holds true, and there's no reason not to doubt NFL Network's report, that means Michael Thomas can play this weekend. is ready to play this weekend. But is he at higher risk of re-injury if someone were to fall on the back of his ankle again? Yes. So if you believe that report, Michael Thomas is not playing this weekend, even though he could. Now, if this were late season, a playoff game, or certainly the Super Bowl, 1,000% Michael Thomas would play. Michael Thomas might have played last weekend. But this week, week 4, I am backtracking. I think medically I'm correct that he's probable, but I think discretion is the better part of valor for the Saints there in Michael Thomas. So I would expect him maybe not to go.
Okay, give me 1 second, Doc. Sorry, my wife likes to open my garage door right in the middle of the podcast, so I always mute it.
I understand.
So I'm just gonna. It's remarkable. I do 7 podcasts per week. It does not matter what time I do them. It doesn't matter anything.
Well, if this helps you at all, because of the kids, I live in just a regular size home, and I've got 7, 7, and 3-year-olds, and it's one of these open concept homes, which is great to keep an eye on all the kids. But it's not so good for Zoom and other things because you hear each other everywhere. And so literally, as of today, I'm closing on a new, what I call pandemic home, with bigger and more rooms, so that when I am at home, I can just go somewhere and not have kids run in and whatever. But also, kids can be Zooming with 3 different classrooms and be okay, right? Because you need more space, you need more separation with all this stuff.
I'm telling you, I thought we're good. Okay, she's gone, so we're gonna pick it up. The guys know they love this. This is like their favorite thing to edit out all my crazy garage. Okay. All right, Doc. So that's they haven't put him on IR either, which with the 3-week, you figure if they thought this was something really serious, they could have easily put Thomas on IR. But let's go to Chris Carson, because this is actually, I'll give you some accolades here because you nailed this. Carson's injury looked bad when it happened. I was doing a podcast and I got all sorts of messages that said, oh no, Carson looks like he's going to be out for the season with the way his knee. You tweeted out almost immediately from watching it on video that you thought it did not seem all that serious. And now it sounds like he's actually going to be able to likely play this weekend. Do you think that he's going to be limited in any way, or is this like a complete dodge of a bullet here?
I think he's going to be fine. To me, and that's what I thought in game. Now, obviously, he left the game, but I didn't look. What I tweeted out and what I was saying is no question Chris Carson was hurt on the play, but I didn't believe that he was injured. Fine line difference, but I think you understand and your listeners understand what I'm saying. And it's just soreness. And post game did make people feel better when Pete Carroll said knee strain, because that's what he said about Bruce Irvin, and it turned out to be an ACL. But I was like, that gator roll, the way you grab your ankle, looks bad, but isn't necessarily a way to tear your ligaments. And I look at the mechanism of injury and study it from a medical perspective. That's why I go, I don't rely on reports. And so I stuck to my gun saying, I still think he can play. As a matter of fact, I said on my podcast, the Pro Football Doc podcast on Monday, that Chris Carson is much more likely to play than Jamal Adams, the safety, the guy who covers sideline to sideline with his groin. He's the one who's going to miss. Chris Carson, I thought from the beginning will play, and I think he's training that way, and I think he will. And I think he'll be effective. You're crazy not to play him, I think, when he is active here. And part of it you have to understand, and I'm not trying to bang on Pete Carroll or any coach, but there's a little gamesmanship here, right? The Seahawks were clearly upset by that. A lot of people in social media and other players are upset by that, quote, gator roll thing. And a little bit of it is like a flop, right? Well, he hurt our player and he's going to miss some time, right? And kind of thing. So I never believed that he would, and I still don't believe that he will.
Well, it was a great call by you, because my phone was absolutely blowing up when that was happening, saying like, oh no, Chris Carson out. Maybe he's out for the season. So great job by you. How about Chris Godwin here? He's already been ruled out for this weekend with his hamstring injury. The rumor is maybe 2 weeks. I don't know if you saw anything on video or how long fantasy managers can expect Godwin to be out of action.
Yeah, if you forgive me a half a second here, the Pro Football Doc boss is going to give me a hard time if I don't say, look, in-game, profootballdoc.com, we have all that stuff on Chris Carson. And the founders, the guys who've already joined last year, look at your go to your emails. There's a special announcement for you guys, and there'll be a big special announcement we'll talk about next week as well to get that. But as far as Chris Godwin is concerned, Unfortunately, the news is not great, right? I mean, it was said to be a mild hamstring strain, so he's going to miss at least this week. He's going to miss more than that. Bruce Arians is saying 4 weeks, which makes it at least a moderate strain. And by the way, a strain is a tear. It's a partial tear. Right. And so if the coach is saying 4 weeks, I would say it's at least 4 weeks, right? And so you're going to have to make your plans for Godwin. And, obviously he just got back from his concussion as well.
Right. So let's talk about another Buccaneer here, and that's Leonard Fournette, who's now been ruled out with an ankle injury. And that just sort of popped up midweek, that just suddenly Fournette was dealing with the ankle injury, missing practice, and then all of a sudden he's out. So how serious do you think this could be?
Well, the good news is I didn't see a particular new injury on video. The bad news is that he's had a history of chronic ankle issues going back to college and then with Jacksonville. If you look at his history, he's missed time for this. My assumption is it's the same injury on the same ankle. I can't tell you for sure. I've written about it before. But for it to pop up like this, it's almost better to have video to say, here's an acute injury, so now here's a defined recovery. This one might be dealing with chronic issues here. And so he's said to be out for 4 weeks as well. So that's something to not only pay attention to for the rest of this season, but don't be surprised if he ends up with an off-season procedure or something, because he's missed time for his ankle each of his years right now.
How about Kareem Hunt? He was battling a groin injury. He returned to practice today. We don't have his official designation for this weekend. Do you think there's something to be worried about? I mean, Hunt has played really, really well this season. I didn't see anything. I didn't realize that he was battling a groin injury until he popped up on the practice report earlier this week.
Yeah, I'd have extreme caution to Kareem Hunt here because he missed the first 2 days of practice. And now with the groin, the type of runner, the type of player he is, how dynamic he is, even if he plays, there's worry of re-aggravation and the groin flaring up again. So from a fantasy perspective, I would urge caution and to look elsewhere. Unless you really, like me, fell into like a zero running back position, sure, I would play him in a second. But right. But I think if you have other options, you got to take him and not rely on Kareem Hunt.
So, Doc, let me throw one more thing here at you. We hadn't talked about this, and I have not seen anything on it other than suddenly DeAndre Hopkins was missing practice time with some sort of ankle injury. I have not seen anything about people noticing when it could have happened or anything about it whatsoever, but apparently it wasn't spotted at practice this week at all, even today. Have you heard anything about the ankle injury or the nature of it, or has there been any video on it whatsoever? Because I haven't seen anything.
I'm with you. And if any of your listeners, when they listen to the podcast, have video of it or have an idea, tweet at me at ProFootballDoc, and I'll go take a look on Game Pass or otherwise. I have not seen anything, so okay. I don't have an idea of what the ankle injury is.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something because I hadn't heard anything about it, and he played great as always, and then suddenly he's missing practice time this week with an ankle injury. But I'm glad because I haven't seen anything either. Okay, hopefully he plays through it. Anyway, Dr. Chao, thank you for joining me. It's informative as always. Just remind everybody where they can find more of you and your great work.
ProFootballDoc.com for the injury index and field view. Give it a try through FanDuel or through the site for free. And at ProFootballDoc for Twitter stuff, and at Outkick for the articles.
All right, great. Well, I will talk to you next Friday, Doc. I appreciate you popping on again.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to get into the rest of our show where we'll do a game-by-game preview with Yates. All right, guys, it is time for Dan and Kyle in the morning. Hey, Yates, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Good. I still have yet to have any free time to be able to watch that segment. So I literally still don't know what you're talking about, but the people seem to like it.
It's good. It's legit good. The show is not something that I'm like, man, you have to watch this show because it just stays true the whole way. Like it's not like Parks for us, right? Parks and Rec is like on another level. Community goes downhill pretty hardcore probably after season 3, but those first 3 seasons, it's quirky, but there's a lot of good stuff. But anyway, you'll watch it one day. It's really funny. You can find Yates on Twitter, as you should know by now, at Kawhi NFL. You know the drill. For our Friday show, we are going to be going through each game for the slate for this weekend, breaking it down from a fantasy perspective. A couple of housekeeping items before we keep going. First, our September giveaway is over. I do not yet have the name of the winner. We will have that by Monday. You can blame tags. I hope that our winner is subscribed to our YouTube channel because you get an extra $100 bonus for our September giveaway if you are subscribed to Pristine Auction, the $100 bonus to Pristine Auction if you are subscribed to youtube.com/fantasypros. Even if you are not the winner of the September giveaway, I hope you are subscribed to youtube.com/fantasypros. We put every podcast that we have on there. You can watch us on video, every podcast right on our YouTube channel. You can view my disgust when Yates makes fun of me or Tags gets mad or anything like that. My face is apparently, I make faces. I don't even notice that, but apparently I do. You can see our sleepers and busts and our waiver wire video each week. You can view our waiver wire and start sit live streams. Sunday morning, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. is Tags. 12 to 1 is Yates on our YouTube channel. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday mornings. We're doing it all the time. We live stream our Sunday night recap show. So again, youtube.com/fantasypros. It helps us out too when you subscribe. So we appreciate it. We will announce our next giveaway, which is coming up right now into October on Monday. So I'll let you guys know what it is. It's going to be good, as it always is. Yates, before we get into the games, why don't we do what we usually do and hit the accuracy challenge here that we got, where the people out there, Joe Q Public, can go ahead and go over-under on various fantasy point projections. You and I like to do that. It gives us a little head start as we get into the games. As always, if you haven't yet done it, go to fantasypros.com/challenge. That is 10 fantasy point over-unders, weekly prizes, season-long prizes, sponsored by BetMGM. Grand prize for the free contest. Again, free 3-day, 2-night stay at an MGM resort. Property in Las Vegas includes airfare. All right, Yates, are you ready to get going into our fantasy over-under challenge?
Let's do it.
Drew Brees against Detroit, 19.5 fantasy points.
I'm going to go under.
I'm going to go under too, 18.5 for me. Ryan Fitzpatrick against Seattle, 18.7 fantasy points.
Aggressive line, but I'm going to go over.
Ooh, all right. I'm going to go just under. It is aggressive, but I do like that game. We'll talk about that in a bit. Joe Mixon, everybody's most talked about player, the guy who just everybody asks questions about, against Jacksonville, 15.2 fantasy points.
Aggressive line for what he's been putting up so far this year, but I'm actually going to take the over on this one.
Wow, bullish. I like it. I got to go under. I do like him this week, but that's a high line. Miles Sanders against San Francisco, 14.4 fantasy points.
I'm going to go under here.
I'm going over. Interesting. We're disagreeing on most of the stuff. James Robinson against Cincinnati, 14.3 fantasy points.
With his work in the receiving game, I'm going to go over.
I agree. It's half PPR, by the way, the challenge, in case you have forgotten. Tyler Lockett against Miami. Is there a line that you won't go over on this one? It's 14.7 fantasy points.
Yeah, I'm taking the over on this one easy.
Yeah, very easily. More than 2 points. Adam Thielen against Houston, 13.2 fantasy points.
He's got to find the end zone, I think, to hit this line. Just with... I'll go under.
I'll go over. I do think he finds the end zone. I'm going to go over 15 fantasy points this week in half PPR formats. Odell Beckham Jr. with the caveat that he is apparently battling a back injury, but he's against Dallas. 11.5 fantasy points.
If he plays, I'll go over.
Yeah, I think it's a big game for Beckham if he plays. Marquise Brown against Washington, 10.5 fantasy points.
He's been hurting me so far this year.
Yep. Go back to the well.
I'll go over. I think this is a good matchup for him.
Correct. Over is right. Jimmy Graham against Indianapolis, 7.1 fantasy points.
He's too involved in this offense, and he's getting the end zone targets. I'm going to take an over here.
I think on my tombstone it will read, Dan Harris refused to buy into Jimmy Graham in 2020 because everyone's yelling at me. I'm going under. All right, we're going to get into all of the games as we get forward here. But first, let's talk very briefly about how the Harris children eat. Their palates are what I will generously call limited. My son kind of likes cereal, but only the really sugary kinds, which we only let him have when we're on vacation. My daughter won't even try it. Hummus and veggie sticks and chocolate chip muffins are legitimately all she eats. We're trying to expand it, but it has not gone well. For me, I love cereal. If you listen to an old podcast that we did on Game Changers, Chris Harris and I talked about what the one food is that we would take with us if we were stuck on a desert island. We both chose cereal and milk, and of course you need like a refrigerator and a power supply to keep the milk cold, but still, I love cereal. So the other day I was having a bowl of cereal, and it's Magic Spoon cereal. I don't know if you guys have ever tried it. If you have not, you should, like, immediately. It's ridiculous. It's amazing. They've got 4 flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. My kids saw me eating it, and they were like, oh, like caught them in a good mood. They were like, oh, what's that? Can we try it? Looks good. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Go ahead, give it a try. Now they're totally hooked. Blueberry is my favorite. My son mixes the frosted and the fruity flavors. My daughter, of course, goes straight to the cocoa, but it's fine because it's cereal. And the best part is it's super healthy. And so my wife is like, yeah, let them have as much cereal as they want. 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving. It's GMO free. It's gluten free. It's keto friendly. Yates, you, Tags, and I, we all have tried Magic Spoon cereal, and we were all talking separately, be like, have you guys tried this one yet? You were the first, actually, and you were like, it's really good, right? I mean, I'm not overselling it.
No, it's actually really good. I'm typically not a breakfast eater. So I will actually, but for this, I've made the exception. I will be eating some Magic Spoon cereal regularly. And even if, I mean, like you said, it's super healthy. So I can have it as a snack, late night snack. That's where I get caught in with some snack food here. So I'll have that as a late night snack and I don't have to feel guilty about it.
I legitimately don't eat breakfast most days during the week. I don't know why. Like, I wake up and I stay up really late. And so I wake up and I'm just not feeling that hungry. On the weekends, I was at breakfast, but I'm always like, I don't know. I want something just that's easy. I'm finding time with the little ones running around to even like sit there and make a breakfast, stuff like that. So now that we have this cereal, and again, my wife is like a health nut. You know that. She runs like nonstop and everything like that. So she insists like we have a very, very healthy household and stuff like that. She loves this because getting the kids to eat something that's actually good for you is hard. And they love the cereal for breakfast. Again, I told you, my daughter legitimately has had a chocolate chip muffin for breakfast every day for like 6 years at this point. Like that's all she really eats. But now she's totally fine with it. And what's great, again, it's cocoa, but it's healthy. So everything about it is healthy. You guys should really try it. We're not overselling it. Trust me. Tags too. When next time we have Tags on, he loves it too. We were all talking about it, all about how our wives do as well. Go to magicspoon.com/fantasypros. Grab a variety pack. If you use our code FantasyPros, you can get free shipping on it. It's 100% guaranteed, by the way. So even if you're worried that we're overselling it or any reason, if you don't like it for any reason, they're going to refund your money. So go to magicspoon.com/fantasypros. Use the code FantasyPros and get free shipping. All right, as always, you guys know this is Friday morning, so we don't have the full practice reports yet, so I will try to give the caveats as to, well, what happens if this guy plays. And as I'm sure you know, and as I mentioned earlier with Dr. Chao, the Steelers and Titans game is postponed, so you need to make other arrangements if you have players in that game. All right, let's get to last night's absolutely riveting game between the Broncos and the Jets. Broncos 37, Jets 28. If you watched, you now understand what my life is like. For the Broncos, Melvin Gordon, 23 carries, 107 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really, the late 43-yard run wasn't. He did score the touchdown early. It wasn't a great game for him until that. How do you generally feel about Melvin Gordon going forward? Is he just in that solid RB2 range for you going forward?
Yeah, I think you have to look at him that way. It was so frustrating because on the Start Sit show, I was talking about Melvin Gordon and identifying him as this player that I was like, I don't really like it. In a game where the offense is most likely not going to be able to move the ball, it's a low over-under, 40.5 points. Like this, just everything lined up, and they weren't even favored. So it was like Melvin Gordon probably going to get some work through the air, but not a ton on the ground. Well, then freaking 65 points in this game put up on the board, which leads to an incredible opportunity for Melvin Gordon. They're playing with the lead for the majority of so it was a weird game to, all around. So Melvin Gordon, though, moving forward, I think you have to be concerned about Phillip Lindsay coming back. That's the caveat here. Like if Lindsay is out, then Melvin Gordon's a solid RB2. You plug him into your lineup and you just, rely on the volume. But once Lindsay comes back, that's the concern. That's where we go, okay, he might be on that edge of an RB2, maybe RB3.
Yeah, it's been hard for me to buy into Gordon this year. Like, I haven't wanted to, again, but without Lindsay, that makes a big deal. He was trending in the right direction. My guess is maybe even if it was a Sunday game, he would have played.
Yeah,
but on Thursday, there was enough time, right? Yeah, so he'll probably be back. Next week is New England, but then they get Miami, KC, so there are some spots for him to go. And, I talked about this with so many people freaking out about Todd Gurley and Joe Mixon and David Johnson, and it's not unwarranted, but there just aren't that many running backs that you can throw out there and feel confident we'll get. So I do think he'll stay in that RB2 range, but I agree that this is, 2 touchdowns and over 100 yards is probably the best game you're going to get from him all season. I'm not bringing any news there, but certainly the shine comes off a little bit when Lindsay comes back. For the receivers, KJ Hamler injures his hamstring. I don't know how serious it is. Tim Patrick with a big game here. 7 targets, 6 catches, 113 yards. Jerry Jeudy, this just makes me mad, man. I mean, 4 targets, 2 catches, 61 yards, and a touchdown. His touchdown catch, which came early, was literally him ripping the ball away from the Jets' cornerback. Literally. It is literally the craziest thing I've ever seen. So I don't know what the deal is. He's wound up playing 48 snaps, Jeudy. Deshaun Hamilton played 57 snaps. I don't know whether or not the Hamler injury, I haven't seen like the exact breakdown of it. It looked like Jeudy was on the field a little more, but in the beginning it was really only 3 receiver sets. So I guess 2 things. One, how do you view Jeudy going forward? I mean, he has a good game here, but he's not playing that much. And number 2, should fantasy managers be picking up Tim Patrick?
It depends on Hamler's injury. It depends with Patrick. Okay, so if Hamler misses, like he's going to be missing practice next week, then I think you can roll out Tim Patrick as a super desperate flex play. But again, let's talk about this, that Brett Rippon didn't exactly look fantastic. So, we have to be concerned about that moving forward. With Jeudy, I was recommending him as a wide receiver 3 flex play this week, just based on volume. Now, that didn't happen as far as the volume, but he was able to make up for it. The thing, you go back and watch the film on that, and you look at specifically the interception. I think it was Rippon's second interception. Judy's release off the line of scrimmage in that one is insane. He gets wide open, and then Rippon just decides to throw it into triple coverage. Not great, but Jeudy is getting open. So I'm not necessarily super excited about Jeudy in the short term, but moving forward, once we get Locke back on the field, Jeudy is just going to continue to rise, and he is a star in the making. It's just he needs a quarterback.
It's so frustrating, but they're also like the fact that he wasn't on the field. I was watching the game closely. Unfortunately, he's just not on the field for most of it. So hopefully they understand, because he is. You're right. You watch him and you come away really impressed. For now, he's going to be sort of at that outside, probably a wide receiver 3 going forward in my rest of season rankings, but that borderline, like low 40s or maybe high 30s or something like that. And you want to roster him for sure. And I hope better days are ahead. But man, this is frustrating. Noah Fant injures his ankle. It sounds minor. So hopefully he's fine going forward. For the Jets, Sam Darnold looked bad when it happened, but he wound up avoiding injury. It does not really matter for fantasy purposes. He runs for 84 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder returns. That's good. He looked good. 10 targets, 7 catches, 104 yards. Out of curiosity, now that he's healthy, where would you rank Crowder?
He's a high-end wide receiver 3 moving forward, just based on volume.
Yep. My peanut butter sandwich all day long. Jeff Smith, is he somebody?
No.
I mean, 7. No. Okay. I just want to throw that out. All right. Because it's 7 for 81. I was like, I was not expecting this. He led the receivers in snaps. Le'Veon Bell should be back next week. That's the early report against Arizona. So if you have been rostering him, get ready to be really excited for 3.2 yards per carry. Okay, let's go to this weekend's game. Saints at the Lions. We will know more about Michael Thomas later. He was been practicing this week, but I did just see a report this morning that says that his status is still pretty much in doubt. So, hopefully we'll know even before Sunday. But for now, we do not know whether or not he's playing. If he does play, you're starting him. But if he doesn't play, I guess this is, if he does not play, are you starting any other Saints receiver? If he does play, are you starting any other Saints receiver?
If he doesn't play, if Michael Thomas doesn't play, I think you can get away with Traquan Smith as a low-end flex play. But I'm not super excited about that, because the majority of the targets are going to go to Michael Thomas. And the thing with Michael Thomas right now is that his concern, like he's practicing, but the concern is risk of re-injury. It's not that like he's just getting back into form and like needs some time. No, he looks good as far as all reports in practice, but they don't want to roll him out and then have him risk being re-injured. So I think if he does play, you can roll him out obviously you're rolling him out, but I'm not expecting anything more than like solid wide receiver 2 numbers, because you could see him on a snap count. You could see him out there as a decoy. I don't know. We just don't know yet. So outside of that, though, no, I'm not really looking at Emmanuel Sanders this week. I'm not really looking at Traquan Smith outside of a low-end flex play.
Even if Thomas doesn't play?
If Thomas, that's a good point. If Thomas doesn't play, then I think you can get Traquan Smith as a wide receiver 3, and then Emmanuel Sanders as a borderline flex play. But you're hoping that Sanders finds the end zone for that to work out.
And again, don't forget, Jared Cook is battling an injury. We don't know if he's
Right.
going to play necessarily. So if he's out, that's also going to open up. So I think if both of them are out, as I'm kind of expecting at this moment, again, it's Friday morning, I'm expecting at this point both Thomas and Cook to miss the game. Then both Traquan Smith and Emmanuel Sanders become at least intriguing options that I think you can roll out there in a pinch. Traquan will probably wind up being, as you said, kind of like a borderline wide receiver 3. Sanders a little lower than that. But they are guys this week, we're down a game. We've got injuries. Yep. They're guys who, if you absolutely have to, you can roll out. Now, you're starting Alvin Kamara. Are you starting? You've been pretty high on him for most of the season. This is a great matchup. You're starting Latavius Murray as a flex?
Yeah, it's kind of in the same argument of a Joe Mixon. He's not getting nearly as much work as far as Joe Mixon, but it's like at some point the touchdowns are going to be there, right? He's not going to get 200 carries on the season and no touchdowns. So that's where the workload comes, or like that is where his value comes in, is where he's going to score. And I think that in this matchup, if you can't start Latavius Murray as a borderline RB3 flex play, then I don't know if you can ever confidently roll him out. Like, this is a game where the Saints should lean on the run game. I'm not, like we talked about Drew Brees in the fantasy over-under. Like, I'm taking the under because I don't expect him to have to throw the ball a ton. So in a high over-under game too, I think you can roll out Murray, especially taking into account that you're losing Derrick Henry, James Conner, these main options here. So I think, you can roll out Latavius Murray as a RB3 flex play.
Yeah, he's ranked 32nd in our consensus half PPR rankings at running back. So I do think he's somebody who you can get out there as a flex play. Are you willing to stream Drew Brees?
If I have to. Like I said, I don't think that he has a high ceiling this week. And we've talked about this with tags, like looking at the other options at the quarterback position this week, there are some really, really good matchups. So like I would personally rather stream Ryan Fitzpatrick over Drew Brees.
That's fair. Right now I have Brees slightly over Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I do think that they're in just this big blob of guys who are outside QB1 ranking territory, but are all guys that you can start. And Brees and Fitzpatrick are really close together. So I'm fine with that. Right now I lean Brees, but when I redo my projections on Saturday night, they could flip-flop, but they're very, very close. For the Lions, start or sit any Lions running back?
You can start AP. Again, we have to take into consideration that fantasy managers are now dealing without Derrick Henry, or now reeling, without Derrick Henry and James Conner. So, AP can be rolled out as an RB3, but nothing more than that. DeAndre Swift, he's like Darrell Bevel came out and said that he's going to just continue to spell the other running backs on this roster, which is a death sentence for fantasy football. So that's not great. So AP, and the thing to keep in consideration here with Matt Patricia is that he is playing to keep his job. Like, if they do not win this year, he's out. So he's going to go, rather than play for the long term with DeAndre Swift and get him onto the field, get him used to the NFL level, again, with no preseason, he's going to roll out Adrian Peterson because he gives him the best chance to win. So AP, without his involvement in the receiving game, without the potential that he's going to score regularly, I just think that you have to expect RB3 production and not much more.
Yeah, it's one of these things where I really, really don't want to start Adrian Peterson this week, and I really, really don't know how I could get away from it if I am in this situation. He's going to be ranked in the low 30s for running backs. That's where I have him right now, 32nd. Yeah, as a flex play, fine. It's a terrible matchup. I hate starting Adrian Peterson, but yeah, he's going to get the volume still. So let's move on here to the wide receivers. You're starting Kenny Golladay, assuming he plays, which he's healthy. Start or sit Marvin Jones?
I think you should sit Marvin Jones if you can.
Okay. All right. This is a guy I'm willing to start Jones this week. I think if you're not shadowed by Lattimore, who will take Golladay, and
here's
Lattimore's
the thing.
A little banged
yeah,
up.
I was just about to say, keep that in mind with Lattimore, is that he's kind of banged up, had an injury in practice on Wednesday, I believe. So his availability for this game is in question too.
Right. Yeah, but I think either way, I think Jones is gonna have a game here. Not great. I mean, I have him ranked right now 32nd. So, but he's a wide receiver 3 for me. I think this is probably the last time I'm willing to roll him out at this point before I just completely cut bait. TJ Hawkinson, you okay with starting him?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And are you streaming Matthew Stafford?
I am not. I've got Stafford at 18 in my rankings this week. I'm not super excited about the matchup. Now, if Lattimore misses, that might bump him up like 1 or 2 spots. But again, it's looking at the other options and some of these guys that have great matchups that pushes Stafford down the board a little bit.
Yeah, he for me is right in that range of the borderline startable guys. Like again, I've got like Stafford and Burrow and Breeze and Fitzpatrick and Minshew. They're all just like right there. So if you're, again, I will update my rankings. I pinned them to my Twitter profile so you can check them there. But right now they're all in like a conglomerate where you could start any of them and be okay. Let's go to the Chargers at the Bucks. You're starting Austin Eckler. You are starting Keenan Allen. You're starting Hunter Henry, I assume, right?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else in the Chargers are you starting?
No, not Mike Williams with Justin Herbert at behind center. He's not getting the...
I assume Williams, by the way, is not even going to play because he's battling injuries in his practice most of the time this week. So I assume he's out. But even if he plays, you're saying stay away.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Even if he plays, stay away. And then Joshua Kelly.
Yep.
There are going to be some fantasy managers that are going to have to be forced to play Josh Kelly with injuries, and then Derrick Henry and James Conner. We've talked about it, but I'm not expecting anything great in this matchup. I'm not even expecting like huge numbers from Austin Eckler on the ground. It's going to be his work through the air that saves him. So if Joshua Kelly's not getting that work through the air, then I don't have him as anything more than an RB3.
That's the thing. I feel like he's just going to... There's all these RB3s right now, none of whom I want to start, but who I'm like, I don't know. It's hard to know whether or not you're going to have better options. Right. But yeah, that's where he is. He's 33 for me right now for Kelly, and running backs in half PPR formats. Start or sit any Bucks player not named Mike Evans.
I think you can roll out Gronk.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Gronk going for...
Yeah, I heard you talk about him.
Yeah, as a streaming option. Okay, so I'm not necessarily saying that he's going to be a top 6 option at the tight end position this week, but if you are desperate at the tight end position, you need an option. Gronk saw his snap percentage go from 69% in week 2 to 93 last week. He saw significant targets. This would be something that I would say, no, I don't think you should go with Gronk if Chris Godwin was playing. But with Godwin out, that opens some targets over the middle of the field. And Gronk, obviously Brady loves Gronk, and he's going to lock onto him. So I think this is the part of the year where we start to see Gronk get more involved in the offense as a receiver. And I think that the opportunity is there. So I don't think that... I've got him at like tight end 13 in my rankings this week. So he's kind of in that streaming option consideration. But yeah, it's a tough matchup for the Tampa Bay passing game in general. So I think Gronk is going to need to be a factor, and I think that he can deliver those kind of numbers for you.
It's a good point. Gronk right now is pretty low in my rankings. He's 20th, but I haven't run it since... I assume Scotty Miller, by the way, is going to miss this game.
That's
and
a good point, too.
Going to be that many. Right, there aren't going to be that many options. And Fournette may miss the game. If he does, are you starting Ronald Jones?
I think you have to, with the volume that he's going to get. They're not going to give LaShawn McCoy significant work in this game. So I think Ronald Jones becomes a low-end RB2 just out of necessity for fantasy managers, but then also just based on volume. So very, very tough matchup. Not excited about him, but you can plug him in based on the volume he's going to see.
And if Fournette plays, are you starting either one?
No.
Good. That is the correct answer. Colts in Chicago. Start or sit any Colt not named Jonathan Taylor.
Mo Alley Cox. I think you can roll out as kind of in that same territory of Gronk, where he's kind of in this, tight end 12 to 15 range, streaming consideration. But I'm not excited for this Colts passing attack against Chicago. The Chicago Bears defense has been lights out so far this year. So I think looking at Phillip Rivers, I'm expecting a couple turnovers in this game from him. I'm not expecting good things from this passing attack in general. So Mo Alley Cox can be rolled out because he is going to need to be involved in this offense. But I actually think this is a Nyheim Hines game.
Oh, interesting. Are you willing to start Himes as like a flex play in half PPR leagues?
Yep, I am.
Interesting. Okay, out of curiosity, do you have your rankings up, and where do you have them ranked?
I have Nyheim Hines at 32 right now.
Okay. We're not that far off. Right now I'm 35, so that is fair. Just so we can check the box for this week, where do you have T.Y. Hilton ranked?
I have T.Y. Hilton at 41.
Do you go down that far to get to where you have T.Y. Hilton ranked? Yeah, I am ranked. He's my 4th wide receiver. I'm just kidding. On the week, he is... no, he's in my 30s right now. I haven't even finalized it, but right now he's 36. We'll see where he ends up. But you know me and T.Y. Hilton. I will never quit you.
Well, I'll just throw this in really quick. Because I said to Tags, talking about this earlier on in the week, that like if T.Y. Hilton, if they were going up against the Seahawks, where the Seahawks are allowing 47 points to opposing fantasy wide receivers on average, which is ridiculous. In that matchup, I would be going, okay, I think you can start T.Y. Hilton as a solid wide receiver 3. But it's the matchup here against Chicago that I'm not a huge fan of.
Yeah, I think that is completely fair. In a better matchup, I would certainly, even now, still rank T.Y. Hilton higher. For the Bears, you're obviously starting Allen Robinson. You feel okay about Dave Montgomery? Good to go?
Yeah, it's not a fantastic matchup, but I'm leaning into the volume. I think Cordell Patterson comes back into the backfield as a complementary piece. He'll see some targets out of the backfield, but this is going to be David Montgomery's backfield. Tags mentioned that this is a very, very tough matchup for running backs. So, again, I'm not expecting top 10 production or anything like that, but you can roll him out as a solid RB2 this week.
Are you starting either Anthony Miller or Jimmy Graham?
Anthony Miller, I have at wide receiver 39 for the week, so I think you can roll him out as a flex option. You're just hoping that he finds the end zone. And, again, with Nick Foles, I think that he's going to lock onto the slot receiver. And Miller should have had 2 touchdowns in that last game. So I think that he's going to see some more targets in this one. This offense should get back on track. Executing the offense is what Foles can do. And so that creates more opportunities for these receivers. And then with Jimmy Graham, again, he's kind of in that same territory of a Gronk and Mo Alley Cox. Like, you're just rolling him out there and hoping that he finds the end zone.
I'm sure Jimmy Graham will score a touchdown on my bench because I have him ranked 18th. Cardinals at the Panthers. You're starting Kyler Murray. You're starting Kenyon Drake. You're certainly starting DeAndre Hopkins, assuming he's fine. He's missed practice on Wednesday and Thursday with the ankle, assuming he plays. Are you starting anybody else on the Cardinals?
I'm not. Isabella is obviously a hot waiver wire ad this week, and people are buying into the fact that he scored 2 touchdowns on 4 targets last week. He's kind of, I've talked about it, he's kind of in that same territory of a Mecole Hardman, where you roll him into your lineup as a flex option in deep leagues, and you hope that he finds the end zone. So if Hopkins misses, though, then I think you can roll out. I think you can roll out Isabella as a fine option. Again, a great matchup for these wide receivers. And then Larry Fitzgerald would move up a little bit, but I'm not excited about it.
You can't go back to that well.
Yeah, I'm not.
You threw him out there as like a deep guy.
Oh, last week I was like,
no, we can't do that.
That came with a caveat. That was like super deep leagues, like if you're desperate. But
of course.
No, that did not work. But if Hopkins misses, then the targets have to go somewhere.
Correct. Yeah. No, I agree. Isabella there would rank up. For right now, Isabella is 52nd for me. He's not a guy I'm willing to trust, assuming Hopkins plays. And again, I think you're going to see a lot of Kenyon Drake.
This is a get-right game for Kenyon Drake.
Let us hope. We thought maybe last week was a get-right game. Let's go to the Panthers. You're starting DJ Moore. You're good with Robbie Anderson, right? Locked into your lineups as a wide receiver 3 at this point?
Of course. Maybe even higher than that.
Ooh, baby. I love it. How about Mike Davis? You're good with him?
Yeah. Yeah, obviously I was the one that was saying with Mike Davis last week, like, hey, be cautious because of the matchup. He's getting too much work out of the backfield to ignore, and this is a great matchup for him. So I've got him at just inside my top 20 running backs on the week, I think.
Top 20 back is correct. Anybody else in the Panthers, or good to move on?
No, good to move on.
Very good. Browns in Dallas. Again, we've got some injury questions right now. We've got Kareem Hunt, may miss this game with a groin injury. It doesn't sound too serious, but may not be ready for this game. And you've got Beckham, who apparently has a back injury that he's playing through. But you are starting both Kareem Hunt and Beckham if they play, right?
Correct. Kareem Hunt as a solid RB2 and OBJ as a solid wide receiver 2 with upside.
This is correct. Those are the correct rankings. Well done. Starter sit Jarvis Landry.
I think you can start him. My whole thing with Jarvis Landry when we were cracking up on last week's podcast or whatever, or was that this week? Again, no idea. No idea what days are at this point.
Together.
Yep. So with Jarvis Landry, I was saying, though, that he's still getting consistent targets. It's just that the fact that the Browns have been able to lean on their run game and have only thrown the ball 23 times each of the past 2 weeks. So now, in a matchup where Dallas's offense is going to be, putting up points, that's what they do. And so Cleveland is going to have to throw the ball a little bit more than they would like. They're still going to try to lean on their run game, but it creates a little bit more opportunity here for Landry. I think you can roll him out as a solid wide receiver 3 if Beckham plays. If Beckham doesn't play, then you can boost him up. Again, the Cowboys are the second easiest matchup for opposing fantasy wide receivers on the season, and they're giving up 34 points per game on average. So it's crazy. It's crazy that the second easiest matchup is 34 points, and then you have the Seattle Seahawks as the number 1 with 47. Like, not even close.
It's insane. I know. They're just on another stratosphere. Jarvis Landry or Robbie Anderson?
I'll go Robbie Anderson.
Jarvis Landry or T.Y. Hilton?
Jarvis Landry.
Forget that. I know the answer to that one. Jarvis Landry or CeeDee Lamb in this game?
That's a good question. I will go with I have CeeDee Lamb at 30. I have Jarvis Landry at 32. So I think this comes with a caveat. If Beckham plays, then I'll go CeeDee Lamb. If Beckham sits, then I'll go Landry.
Jarvis Landry or AJ Green?
I will go AJ Green. I like the matchup for him.
All right, we have gone too far on Jarvis Landry. For Dallas, start everybody? I mean, everybody?
Yeah.
Just start everybody,
yeah,
right?
I think
that's basically always Dallas.
Yeah, with CeeDee Lamb, again, I mentioned I've got him at 30. So you can roll him out as a solid wide receiver 3, and he's getting the targets, assuming that he's fully healthy, right? And I think that all indications right now are that he is.
Correct.
With him leaving last week's game, or at least getting banged up with that weird, awkward hit. Dalton Schultz is kind of in that same territory of Mo Alley Cox, Jimmy Graham, Rob Gronkowski. You're rolling him out there and hoping that he finds the end zone, but he's a streaming option for sure.
Correct. Right now I'm 13th. He'll likely end up right around there, so you can definitely get away with Dalton Schultz. The Vikings visiting the Texans. Sounds good, by the way, on that front. They had no positive tests today, so sounds like we're good to go there. Hopefully, you're starting Dalvin Cook. You're starting Adam Thielen. Are you starting Justin Jefferson?
I think you can. I think you can roll him out as a low-end wide receiver 3 flex play this week.
So I was surprised by this when I started running my projections as to where he came out. He's a borderline for me wide receiver 3. I'm still not completely willing to trust him, but I did not expect to want to start him this week. But when I ran my projections, he kind of gets out there as a guy. And again, part of it is that we're missing wide receivers, but he is a guy who I think you can probably roll out there, I agree, as a wide receiver 3 or worst case flex. For the Texans, you're starting Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
That was a question. Sorry.
Okay, so
you're starting,
I was like, okay.
my bad. The inflection wasn't there. You're starting David Johnson.
Yeah, this is a really good matchup for him.
You're starting Will Fuller, assuming that he plays. Again, he's battling apparently a little bit of a hamstring injury. Not a surprise.
I know.
If he plays.
Yeah, that came up yesterday, was that he was added to the injury report with a hamstring injury. That never good for that to pop up late in the week. So I'm downgrading Will Fuller in my rankings right now. I've got him as a wide receiver, low-end wide receiver 3. Not super excited, but it's a good matchup for him. So if he plays, I think you can roll him out there, but it's always the concern of does he play the full game or does he, leave and pull a disappearing act?
How about a little flyer on Brandon Cooks?
I actually really like Brandon Cooks this week. I have Brandon Cooks at 27, and then I have Will.
Wow, all right, that's high. That's high.
Yeah, I like him. I like him in this game. Again, you're talking about a get-right game for the Houston Texans offense. You're talking about the matchup here against Minnesota that has just been burned consistently. So Brandon Cooks, especially if Will Fuller, is battling this injury, then I think you can absolutely fire him up in your lineup.
Yeah, we talked about him in the DFS show. He's a good tournament play here, but I don't have him that high, but he's moving into the wide receiver 3 range, especially if Will Fuller has to miss this game. Let's go to the Dolphins against the Seahawks. I think the short answer is probably that you're starting everyone in this game, but where do you have Ryan Fitzpatrick ranked in your weekly quarterback rankings?
I have Fitzpatrick at 12. So he's right inside that range where you can roll him out. I love the matchup for him here. Again, you're talking about Seattle against Miami. Like they are going. Russell Wilson could easily throw for 5 touchdowns yet again. Right. There's no reason to doubt that. And so if that's the case, then Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to have to throw the ball. And in a matchup that is really nice for opposing quarterbacks, and like I've mentioned multiple times, really nice for opposing wide receivers, then you're starting the options in this game. You're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick as a great streaming option. Again, I mentioned it on Wednesday's show. In my Dynasty League, Ryan Fitzpatrick was sitting there. It's a 1-quarterback league, but he was sitting there on the waiver wire. I have Carson Wentz and Ryan Tannehill. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to drop this, borderline startable asset, it's just guy sitting on my bench. And I was like, okay, I'll plug in Ryan Fitzpatrick and I'll be fine for the week. So I think you can absolutely get away with starting Fitzpatrick. And then, as you look at the options here for Miami with Devontae Parker, fire him up as a borderline wide receiver 1 in this game, assuming that he's fully healthy. But even if he isn't, he showed that he's involved in the offense last week. Preston Williams is the interesting one. I'd love to know your thoughts here, Dan, on where you have Williams, because for me, he's a tough rank. He's someone that not seeing the targets, but yet in a great matchup, you can roll out as a flex option and hope that he finds the end zone.
Yep, that's exactly what I have him. I have him right now 37th, and my guess is that some of the guys I have ranked ahead of him are going to be ruled out. So for now, I have them in my ranking. So my guess is he's going to be in the mid to low 30s. So in the wide receiver 3 range, yeah, it's a great matchup. You start your wide receivers at this point against Seattle. I believe they've allowed in their 3 games. I said it on our Sleepers and Buzz video. I think they've allowed 9 wide receivers in 3 games or something like that to get to double-digit fantasy points in half PPR formats. That's just nuts. Like, it's just, you start your wide receiver. So for me, even that Preston Williams has been a disappointment because he's not getting the targets, I think this is the game you roll him out there, as you do with best running back ever, Myles Gaskin, right?
Yeah, I think you can roll him out. The workload probably isn't going to be there as far as on the ground. He's not going to see 22 carries in this game like he did last week, with Miami needing to play catch up. But with his work through the air, he's getting involved as a receiver out of the backfield.
Correct.
So that's where he can inflate his value, and especially with the need for running back right now, you can roll him out. I think I have him at like 31 in my rankings right now.
I'm much higher than that on him. So let's just, draw that line. I'm at 22 because
Wow.
I do look. He is getting the volume. I mean, you're right. He's not going to see all those carries that he saw last week, but he's involved. I don't know how many. I think he's got 16 targets and 15 catches on the year. Like, he's involved. I don't think the game script matters all that much. So, especially in a week like this, I will take. There's no touchdowns unless he's going to break a long one, which you can't count on. But I do think that he's going to be so reliably involved at this point, especially with the injuries that we've got going on. We don't know. We'll talk about in a second whether Chris Carson's going to play. Who knows? And the cancellation of the Titans and the Steelers, yeah, for me, I'm rolling him out there as a low-end RB2, but somebody who I'm rolling out in pretty much
Yeah,
every week.
I think it comes down to, like you're saying, start Myles Gaskin with that ranking.
Correct.
That's what that says. For me, I'm like, I think you can start him. I've got him at 29, so is where he lands in my rankings. So, I think you can definitely get away with starting Myles Gaskin, but again, I'm not expecting anything crazy. For you, you're saying start him.
It's a firm Harris start Myles Gaskin, get into it. You're starting Mike Gesicki, I assume, right?
Yeah, obviously last week wasn't needed a ton. Saved his fantasy day with that touchdown, but this is a game that they're going to need him.
Yep. For Seattle, of course, you're starting pretty much anybody in the passing game. If Chris Carson does play, you're starting him.
Yeah. Yep.
If Chris Carson doesn't play and Carlos Hyde does play, you're starting him.
Oh, absolutely.
If Chris Carson doesn't play and Carlos Hyde doesn't play, are you starting a Seattle running back?
No.
Okay. That's good. Those are good lines. Let's move on to the Jaguars at the Bengals. You're starting James Robinson. You're starting DJ Chark. If he plays, he's still limited in practice. It's very vague, this chest back injury, but if he plays, you're starting him?
Yeah, I think you can fire him up as a wide receiver 3.
Okay. You streaming Gardner Minshew despite last week's debacle?
He's right there in that range. So I've got Gardner Minshew at 13. So I've got him right behind, Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then I've got Joe Burrow at 11, which I'm sure we'll touch on Cincinnati.
No, I was gonna just skip him.
Okay,
I hope that's okay. For very quickly, if DJ Chark is out, are you starting any other Jaguars wide receiver?
I think even if Chark plays, you can start Cole as a wide receiver 3.
You're good going back to the well then with Cole.
I am. Yep, he's seeing enough targets. He's being efficient, and he has a chance to find the end zone in this one.
Yeah, I will look for where I have Cole ranked while we're talking about the Bengals. So you like Joe Mixon then?
Yeah, this is a week that you go back and you plug in Joe Mixon with confidence. It's a great matchup. I think points are going to go up on the board in this one. So I think Joe Mixon, again, he's seeing a ton of work. And I mentioned that at some point, the carries and touchdowns have to balance out. And so for him to see this much work and not find the end zone is very, very rare. It's not going to continue. This is what happened last year with Joe Mixon. Everyone was freaking out over Mixon, and then he turned it on towards the end of the year, or towards the second half of the year. So I think that you need to consistently just plug him into your lineup and lean into the fact that he's getting a ton of carries, and I think he has an excellent chance of finding the end zone in this one.
Yeah, I'm strong RB2 right now. By the way, I have Keelan Cole in the mid-40s right now. That's not where he's going to end up. Again, I'm ranking guys. I'm pretty sure they're going to be out, but I wait for right now till they're declared out. But I'm not quite as excited on him as you are. But you're starting Joe Burrow, right? You said 11?
Yeah, I've got him at 11.
Okay. I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, I have him 13th, I think, in my first set of rankings, but that's essentially the same thing when it comes to projections in that range. What Bengals wide receivers are you starting?
All of them?
Are you starting? Okay, you're starting Boyd.
Yes,
right,
I have Boyd at 20.
For sure.
Yep.
I have him at 22. You're starting Green?
Yeah, I have him at 26.
Yeah, I have Green a little lower than that, I think. I have him 33rd, but he's still starting. Are you starting Higgins?
I have Higgins at 48. So I have him as
Okay.
a wide receiver 4, and I think a
Okay.
guy that you can roll in as a flex option.
Yep. Okay. Let's go on to the Ravens at Washington. Start or sit any Ravens running back.
I think you can still start Mark Ingram as an RB3, but I'm not crazy about that. Again, this would come if it was a normal week where we didn't have Pittsburgh
Yep.
and Tennessee, out, then I would say and a ton of injuries, then I would say I think you need to sit Mark Ingram, but there are going to be some fantasy teams that absolutely have to plug him into your lineup.
Yeah, I think I have him ranked 28th right now, and I feel disgusting about it. But I think you just, especially in this game where they're probably just going to run
Right.
nonstop, would you start Dobbins as a flex?
No.
You're just avoiding him altogether.
Yep.
Okay. How about Hollywood Brown? Disappointing game. Couple of disappointing games actually in a row here. What do you think?
I think that you can plug him in as a wide receiver 3. I think that's what you have to, he's in the same territory of a Will Fuller. That you plug him in as a wide receiver 3 and you hope that he finds the end zone, because if he doesn't, then you're going to be disappointed. But for him to go, it would be the worst feeling in the world to sit him and then for him to go off for a touchdown and 100 plus yards. So I think you just have to live with and roll with the punches. If you drafted Marquise Brown, this was in the realm of possibilities. This is who he is in this offense. So for him to to sit on your bench, I don't think that you can take that chance. So roll him in as a wide receiver 3 and just live with the potential range of outcomes.
Yeah, and to your point, my first cut of rankings as I wait for sort of the injury reports, Will Fuller 26, Marquise Brown 27. So yeah, right in that range of the Will Fuller. Start or sit anyone on the Washington football team.
Terry McLaurin and Antonio Gibson are really the only ones that you should be looking at. I'm not excited about Logan Thomas this week in this matchup. Not super excited about it. Terry McLaurin, not super excited about him, but he's going to see targets, and you can't
You're
ignore
still starting him.
So you still have to start him, but I've got him as a low-end wide receiver 2 this week. And then Antonio Gibson, I have at RB28. Very, very
I'm 27.
Very, very tough matchup.
You just, I don't know, but you can't get away at this point,
Correct.
right? I mean,
Correct.
We're just in. This is the age this year and this week in particular. It's just you don't want to start these guys, but I think you have to in a tough matchup. But I fear for the Washington football team given how angry Baltimore is going to be. Let's go to the Giants at the Rams. Starter sit anyone on the Giants.
You can start Darius Slayton as a wide receiver 3, but he's going to draw coverage from Jalen Ramsey. Not excited about that whatsoever. Golden Tate is like a wide receiver 5. I'm not super excited about him. He's just lacking any run after the catch ability, which is what he's made his mark, his mark in the NFL with. So you can't rely on him. He's going to soak up targets, but wide receiver 5 in PPR leagues. And then Devontae Freeman, again, you might be desperate and you might have to start him, but he's a borderline RB3.
Where is he in your running back rankings?
Devontae Freeman is at 35.
That's where I have him. Way to go. Nice job. That's the correct ranking. So you could conceivably start him, but you're not really looking forward to doing so. I'm pretty much on board with you on the receivers. I have Slayton as a borderline wide receiver 3. I have Tate a little higher than you. I think I have him as a low-end wide receiver 4. I could see a scenario where he has an okay game in this one, but I'm not willing to trust it. And as you have all season, I assume you are sitting Evan Ingram.
Yeah, the game script is there for Evan Ingram to prove me wrong, but based on what I've seen on the field, I can't confidently recommend Evan Ingram.
That is correct. That's very good analysis. That's exactly how I feel. For the Rams, you're starting Darrell Henderson. You're starting Robert Woods. You're starting Cooper Kupp. You're starting Tyler Higbee, I assume. Are you starting anyone else? And is any of that wrong?
ECR has Tyler Higbee up at 4 on the week, last time I checked, which is crazy. I do not see that happening. We have to
no, he's down to 6.
Okay. We have to talk about this, that the Rams are 13-point favorites in this game, which is absurd. So
I heard your live reaction to that on the Wednesday start. So you were like, wait, I've totally checked out. What is happening?
Yeah, that sent me reeling. No, with 13-point favorites, that's just ridiculous. So what you're hoping for with any of the receivers in this game is that in the first quarter, with this projected game script, is that Tyler Higbee or Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, they find the end zone. That's what you're hoping for early. And then from there on out, it's going to be the Darrell Henderson show. It's going to be potentially Malcolm Brown factoring in. Cam Akers, is apparently going to be out for this game. He doesn't sound like he's trending towards playing. So that's great that's a great sign for Darrell Henderson. Fire him up as a...
Where do you have him? Let's put an actual pin on that. Where do you have him ranked?
I have him at 16 right now.
I have him 15.
But
correct. That is right.
I have Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde back-to-back in my rankings right now at 14 and 15 until I get clarity on that situation. Gotcha. So as soon as we get clarity on that one, Darrell Henderson will move up. But I have a hard time putting him over Miles Sanders, Jonathan Taylor, James Robinson, Joe Mixon. But fire him up as a must-start option this week.
Yeah, 15th for me, absolutely locked in RB2 for sure. Let's go to the Patriots against the Chiefs. Starting Cam Newton?
Yeah. The thing with Cam Newton last week was he finished outside the top 24 quarterbacks, which is not great, obviously. But looking at Cam Newton and this game with the Patriots and the Raiders, they didn't need him. They absolutely did not need him whatsoever in this game to win it. So now you're looking at this matchup and you're going to say, okay, guess what? You're going up against Kansas City. They need Cam Newton in this game. So I'm expecting big things. I have him at QB8 this week. I think that he is able to be involved again as the goal line back for this offense. I think he finds the end zone maybe once or even twice in this one. So absolutely fire up Cam Newton. And then looking at the running backs, though, like gross. I think James White is probably the only one that you should be looking at.
I don't want to start any of them. For the running backs, Cam Newton, I completely agree. I have him 9th. I'm not. You can see them, assuming James White plays. I mean, it's narrative, but you can certainly see them trying to get him a touchdown if they can, just for everything that he's going through. But I don't know. I don't even know because I ranked originally before I saw him come back, assuming that White was not going to play. But for now, and so with that, I thought you could potentially get Burkhead in there as a flex. But I don't even want to check my rankings. It's pinned to my Twitter profile, Dan Harris 80, because I'm going to wind up with that. And are you starting Julian Edelman? You okay with that?
Yeah. The thing with the receiving options here of N'Keal Harry, Julian Edelman, and James White, those are the only three that you should be looking at for the Patriots. Mm-hmm. The thing is that in the games where New England is not going to be able to just run the ball, that's where these guys become intriguing options. Looking at the Seattle game in week 2, where Julian Edelman just soaked up targets. N'Keal Harry got involved as well. James White in this game, I like him. I have him at 31 this week because of the narrative here that New England is going to have to throw the ball more, which means that James White is going to be involved as a receiver out of the backfield. So that's why I like James White a little bit more this week than probably the consensus. I haven't checked where ECR has him, but looking at James White, I think you can roll him out. Julian Edelman, definitely think you can roll him out there as a wide receiver 3 with upside. And then N'Keal Harry is a wide receiver 4, a flex play. He's not someone that I'm necessarily going like pounding the table, going like, yeah, you have to start him, but I think you can get away with it.
Yeah, I think you have the situation correct. I have Edelman as a borderline wide receiver 2, so I think he's going to have a nice game. For Kansas City, you know who you're starting of all the obvious options. What about Sammy Watkins? Here was pretty involved against Baltimore, but my guess is he's going to draw Gilmore. I don't think he matches up with Tyreek Hill or anything like that. Are you starting or sitting Sammy Watkins?
It's actually a good question. I'm going to look that up as far as what side of the field typically that Gilmore's lining up on. But Watkins, I think you can still get away with. I think you can still roll him out there. I have him at 37. So he's just simply seeing too many targets in this offense. And I think that Kansas City, I said this in, I don't remember where. I said this that like, much. You know, I know that this offense is actually like just getting started, which is terrifying. You know, they're like, this is the part of the season where we're going like, okay, now the offenses are finally starting to click without preseason games. We're 3 games in. Like, this is now where offenses are probably going to get rolling. And we're already like breaking records through 3 weeks as far as the amount of touchdowns that have been scored and points going up on the board. So Kansas City, with the continuity that they've had coming over from last year, now adding in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think they're just getting rolling. And so you have to be looking at Sammy Watkins as a wide receiver 3 moving forward.
Yeah, I like him long term, and I think that's the right way to look at it long term, but I don't love this matchup. He's a guy who I would fade if I could in this matchup. I have him ranked more as like a borderline wide receiver 4. I just don't think this is going to be good. I think that's the way the Pats are going to try to attack them, and they're going to take away Watkins, and then they're going to, I don't know. I mean, not that they'll focus on taking away Watkins or anything like that. I just think that's how the defense sets up a little bit for this game. So he's not a guy who I would rely on. Everybody else, fire him up in the game, of course, as you always would. Bills against the Raiders. You're starting Josh Allen. You're starting Stephon Diggs. Sounds like Zach Moss is going to play here. Are you starting Moss or Oh my God.
Singletary?
How are you, Devin Singletary? How are we doing? How are we doing right now? Too early in the morning. Moss or Devin Singletary, are you starting either one?
Absolutely. I think you can start both. You're looking at the Raiders. They're currently allowing the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I think that Zach Moss, I have at 22 on the week, assuming that he plays. And then Singletary, I have at 27. So both of these guys you can roll out as, as RB2s, RB3s. I think that you can get them into their lineup.
So you have Moss ahead of Singletary?
I do, because I think Moss has more of an opportunity to score.
Okay. All right. I have not updated my rankings yet to account for Moss. But I think I'm probably going to have Singletary slightly ahead, just given that Moss was coming off the injury. Out of curiosity, if Moss was out, where would you rank Singletary this week?
Singletary would probably slide in just above David Montgomery at RB 17.
Would you like to know where I currently have Devin Singletary
It's
ranked?
probably at like 12.
It's 9.
Wow,
9.
okay.
9 times. That's right. That's where I have him. That's a Ferris Bueller Days Off reference for you. Sorry, Yates. I'm sure you don't have that.
Yep.
John Brown, if he plays, because he's trending up. You starting him?
Wide receiver 4, high-end wide receiver 4.
Okay. How
I
about
think
Cole Beasley? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a Stephon Diggs game. Like, I think wherever we have Stephon Diggs, it's too low. Damon Arnett is out for the next 6 to 8 weeks with a thumb injury. And so now you're asking Trayvon Mullen, who doesn't play on the side of the field that Stephon Diggs lines up on, to either shift over to guarding Stephon Diggs, or you're asking, I think his name is Isaiah Johnson, to step up and guard Stephon Diggs, one of the best route runners in the game. This is a Stephon Diggs game all week.
Where do you have Stephon Diggs ranked?
I have Stephon Diggs I am pulling it up. I have him at 12, and I think that's too low.
Too low. Too low is correct. He's at 10 for me, so I'm right there with you. Are you starting Cole Beasley in a pinch if you have to?
Yeah, if you have to. I think that John Brown, him coming back and practicing on Thursday, obviously limits the excitement that I had for Cole Beasley, but I think that you can still roll him out there.
All right, let's go to Las Vegas. You're starting Josh Jacobs. You have to start Darren Waller, of course.
Correct.
There are no real other wide receivers playing, so are you starting Hunter Renfrow in this game?
Absolutely. You're looking at Buffalo. They are bleeding fantasy points to the slot wide receiver, the slot receiver, excuse me, because you've seen in each week, Jamison Crowder, I don't know just what just happened to my voice. You've seen Jamison Crowder in week 1 go over 100 yards and score. You saw Mike Gesicki as the slot option for Miami, go over 100 yards and score in week 2. And then Cooper Kupp last week, over 100 yards and score. So looking at Hunter Renfrow, and he's utilized deep downfield too. Like, he should have had 2 touchdowns in that game last week because they're utilizing him deep downfield and taking shots to him out of the slot. So I think that you absolutely have to fire up Hunter Renfrow. I've got him at 34 on the week.
Yes, that's correct. Well done. That is 34th is the right ranking for Hunter Renfrow. That's exactly where I have him. The one thing I will say about this game from the Raiders is that I'd be a little you're starting Darren Waller if you have him, but I'd be a little worried about it because I do think that they're going to stick White on him because there's nothing else to do with White, and I think that's probably what they'll do.
And this obviously, we need to mention for people who aren't aware, Bryan Edwards out for this game, and Henry Ruggs considered a long shot.
Correct. I'm sorry I didn't write.
Nope, no worries.
They're both out, so there's really no other option to. I mean, it's not going to be
Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar.
Nelson Aguilar, yes, right. On the Betting Pros NFL podcast that we recorded last night, Matt Peralt who is lives out in Vegas, tried to sell me on Zay Jones and Nelson Aguilar, and I had to end the podcast because we're not doing that. All right, let's go to the Eagles at the 49ers. You're starting Ertz and you're starting Miles Sanders.
Greg Ward.
Deshaun Jackson sounds very questionable. I'm assuming Alshon Jeffrey doesn't play. If not, that's the question. Greg Ward?
Greg Ward. Fire him up.
Where do you have him ranked? I mean, is that assuming Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey are out?
Correct.
Okay.
Which, I mean, even if I'm done with Deshaun Jackson, I'm done.
That's fair.
At this point, even if he's going into the game fully healthy, he's missing snaps because he's just tweaking his hamstring. And I don't know what the heck's going on. I'm done with Deshaun Jackson. So looking at now the options here, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, John Hightower, and Greg Ward are your starting wide receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles this week. Greg Ward saw 11 targets last week. Dallas Goedert out with an ankle injury. Now there are some targets that are vacated over the middle of the field. This is where Carson Wentz is going to live, is over the middle of the field. He's not taking regular shots to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside on the perimeter. He's not taking
I think he may be battling an injury. I thought I saw in the practice reports that even he is battling an injury anyway. So I may be wrong on that, but I thought I saw that right. That's the thing. You make good points. So where do you have Ward ranked then? Assuming
35.
Djax is out. 35. I love it. Okay. Yeah. I'm ranked lower right now. Again, this is part of where I'm sort of just taking it cautiously, and I'm assuming Djax is going to be in. But if not, yeah, I think that's about where he's going to end up. I mean, he's a borderline wide receiver 3. It's going to be the weird week of starting Hunter Renfrow and Greg Ward and even Cole Beasley all the way to our week 4 wins. Okay, I think that's it on the Eagles side, unless I missed something. So let's go to the 49ers. Sounds like McKinnon's okay. Sounds like he's going to play, and his rib injury is not a big deal. Are you trusting to start Jerick McKinnon or Jeff Wilson with George Kittle? Sounds like he's back. That helps the running game, by the way, because he's an elite blocker.
Oh, yeah.
Are you starting either one of them?
I've got Jerick McKinnon at 23, and I've got Jeff Wilson at 32. So that's where I'm expecting low-end RB2 production from McKinnon because of his safety and like floor in the receiving game. And then Jeff Wilson, kind of just splitting the gap there of putting him at 32, where if he finds the end zone, he's going to finish much higher than that. But this is a very, very tough matchup on the ground game, in the run game, right? With and these guys, neither of them were efficient last week against the Giants. So I'm not super excited about them, but the work in the receiving game saves Jerick McKinnon.
And you're not starting Brandon Ayuk, right? I mean, from what we talked about on the waiver wire show.
Yeah, with George Kittle coming back, it limits Ayuk, and then he has to deal with coverage from Darius Slay. So I'm not super excited about him. I've got him at... I'm still scrolling.
It doesn't go down that far.
I've got him at 52 on the week. So, yeah, I'm not super excited about him. His work through, in the run game can certainly inflate that and help him finish much higher than that. But that's just not something that I'm willing to, bet on just yet. So, I'm playing it safe with Ayuk this week.
Right now, he's 40th for me because I do think that they will make a play to get him involved. But my guess is when we get the full practice reports and I update my rankings, it's going to be more like between 40th and 45th. So I'm a little more excited about him. And I could see rolling him out there as a flex, but I don't really want to if I can avoid it. So a little more excited about him than you are. But again, not something I'm going crazy over. Last game, Falcons at the Packers. We don't know about Julio Jones yet. I hope we get some clarity before this. Do you start everyone if they play? I mean, if everybody plays, are you starting Julio Jones? You're starting, of course, Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage if he plays, and Todd Gurley, and Hayden Hurst. Who are you not starting from the Falcons if they all play?
Yeah, it comes with the caveat that we just don't know the statuses on Julio. Julio, last we heard, was that he was trending upward to playing on Monday night, but this is going to be one of the things that you need to join us on Sunday morning on the YouTube channel and the live streams for us to be able to have a little bit more clarity. Again, we're recording this Friday morning, so if he gets in a full practice today, then absolutely fire him up on Monday night. I think that he's going to be fine. With Russell Gage, I legitimately have not heard anything up to this point of the week, which is super weird. So I need to go digging to see if we can find out something on Gage's status. If he does play, I think you can get away with him as a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4.
Yep.
But outside of that, I mean, Calvin Ridley, fire him up. Julio Jones as a high-end wide receiver 2 if he does play, because I don't think that he's going to be at 100%.
How about Hayden Hurst here?
Yeah, Hurst you can still roll out. That game plan was just thrown off last week with Chicago coming back, and it was just super weird. It was a super weird game for Atlanta. So I think that Hurst is going to be more involved this week. And again, very, very high over-under. So you can roll out these options, and I have Hurst as a low-end tight end 1.
So do I. And Gurley still an RB2 for you, even though, he's not involved in the passing game
at all?
Yeah,
I said on the start sit show, you just every week until we see Brian Hill, if this happens, take over this backfield, then Gurley has to be at RB23 or RB24 in my rankings every single week because he's in a dynamic offense and he's getting the carries on the ground. So, yeah, you have to start him.
Well, Devontae Adams sounds like he's going to play, which is great, but randomly you suddenly heard it went from, oh, look, could be this core injury with Allen Lazard to he had surgery and he's out indefinitely. So, MVS has had plenty of chances. It seems like this is probably the best one, so start or sit Marquez Valdes-Scantling.
I haven't adjusted my rankings just yet, but I think that he's going to come up into flex consideration. I'm not excited about MVS. Again, you talked about it. He's had so many chances, but in a high-scoring matchup, I think that you have to roll him out there as a boomer bust flex play.
I did update my rankings after that last night very quickly, and my initial projections had him at 39. So for receivers. So he's a guy who, again, basically what you said, flex play just outside of wide receiver.
Would you rather play MVS or T.Y. Hilton?
I would probably go with T.Y. Hilton. They're close. They're not far off. That shows you basically that's the right level, because I don't love either one of them, but I'm still probably starting T.Y. Hilton because you've got to go crazy if you're going to get me to not start T.Y. Hilton regardless of the matchup. But yeah, I do have Hilton ahead right now. And again, that was the very quick, let me just quickly take Lazard out and see what happens, where I think the targets are going to go and everything like that. And MVS wound up 39. So it's going to go around there, but my guess is I will have Hilton ranked slightly ahead of him. I guess you will be the opposite way.
I've got MVS right now at 42 and T.Y. Hilton at 43. So that's why I asked that question. They're like right there.
I think that's fine. And if you're in like a horrible pinch, for me, I think you could get away maybe with Robert Tonyan, maybe in an absolute pinch, but there are better streaming options, more like tight end premium or really deep leagues like that. Okay, that's great. That's it. Well done, Yates. We went through all the games. I am looking forward to this weekend and having some football. Even last night was wonderful to watch, despite it being a terrible game. Football's just wonderful. Reminder, Sunday morning, as Yates mentioned, he does a live stream from noon to 1, right up until game time on our YouTube channel, tags 11 to 12, youtube.com/fantasypros. I do an Instagram live from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. At FantasyPros. I take over the account, so go ahead and visit there, follow us there. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will talk to you on Sunday night when Tags and I do our recap show. Again, we also live stream that on youtube.com/fantasypros. We'll talk to you then.
Thank you for tuning into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments section below. And while you're there, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you can stay up to date on all of our future content.